Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this discussion on composition studies. In part one, we went over what composition is, the history and major theories of composition, and we talked about whose voices have been included and excluded in that conversation. Here in part two, we're going to go over some applications and activities that represent the modern, in context way of teaching composition, revisiting people like Berlin, and then at the end, doing a little reflection on the future of teaching. Let's begin by reminding ourselves about the new rhetorician notion that truth is dialectical and negotiated. That is, we come to a conclusion by interacting with others in the world. Two truths coming together to form a new truth. Berlin again returns to us and expands this idea in his article Postmodern Theory and Practice. He says, from the postmodern perspective, then, signifying practices shape the subject, the social, and the material, the perceiver and the perceived. What we can draw from this is that there is a relationship between the writer and the audience, and that they inform each other toward a new truth. A key phrase to understand there is signifying practices. Signifying practices are the cultural codes that govern us, how we think, how we behave, and what we believe in categories like gender, race, and class. It is the cultural context we are writing from, and we must understand we are teaching from a cultural context and strive to adapt to best teach within that cultural and social context. Let's look at some examples of this. Richard O. Anderson, in his article A Pragmatic Investigation of Linguistic Politeness and Power Relations in Request Emails, lays out the context of classroom and lesson. He's teaching a group of English language learners how to be polite and respectful when speaking and writing. He adapts to the situation and uses emails as the method for teaching this. The students write emails to people asking for some request. The objective is for students to construct the email to appeal to the receiver, introducing themselves politely and greeting the receiver. This is a strategy that adapts to the current social and cultural context of the classroom and lesson. The conventions of making requests in what's considered polite in America are entirely different from the Southeast Asian countries many of the students come from. Another example is Deborah Mail's lesson on building grammar, in her article Grammar as Choice. Mail's lesson has students slowly building on the length of noun phrases students are using in describing characters and objects in their short stories. The students then slowly build on verb phrases, adverbs, and all the components of a sentence. The grammar lesson adapts to the current context of the class. They are young writers who are creating short stories. The last example we'll look at is memes as means. In this lesson, elementary students create illustrations and memes as demonstrations of understanding what is happening in the book they are reading. This is amazing because the modern social context of American schools is that students are exposed to technology and social media and consistently interact with memes. Memes have become a new form of art and communication where layers of meaning are embedded into a single image, and this is a form of communication the students understand. The lesson adapts to the current context the students in classroom are in, utilizing the context to teach a lesson in a different way. The teachers could have just made the students write a paragraph, but they let students demonstrate their learning and understanding in a different way, using memes and then verbally explaining their process and meaning. These examples are just to say this. As future educators, we must understand that communication exists in context. Teaching is, at its core, a constant dialogue between student and teacher, information of what is being taught and what is being learned. We must adapt our classroom to the cultural and social context this learning is happening in to best facilitate the learning of students. I'll end this video and leave you with a quote from a study called Working Conditions for Contingent Faculty in First-Year Composition Courses at Two-Year Colleges. I think about this all the time, about what role we writing teachers have, and as an adjunct. It is very difficult for me to reconcile the value I know I have, not only as a teacher, but also as a human being, with the absolutely minuscule value I find in my paychecks. I love my job more than anything. I love inspiring in my students a love of writing and an understanding of the almost imperceptible, yet nevertheless infinite, power found in the written word. And yet, at the same time, I don't really feel like society as a whole cares about us or what we do. Reflecting on this, we have to think, why does English feel so swept aside? And could we change this moving forward by better teaching our students in the context they find themselves in?